Largely a quiet weekend in college basketball. Nothing really to see here. So joining us on the show is college basketball insider Reid Forgrave for CBSSports.com and CBS Sports HQ. Nothing really, though, to discuss. Reid, good morning.
Nothing to see here. We got to channel like every FBI-related coach in America and just say, I came here to talk only about basketball. I hope these are just basketball questions you have, right?
Yeah. I'm not here to talk about the scandal, conjecture, or hypotheticals. Only basketball, Reid. So I will start with conjecture, hypotheticals, and what happened over the weekend.
Media, what are you thinking, media?
Jay Billis said that Sean Miller will never coach again. I find this very hard to believe. Let's start here. Will Sean Miller coach again this season for Arizona?
I don't think this season. It's just too bad of a headline, right? Like I think that's ultimately why Arizona pulled him off the game. I guess it was considered a mutual decision to pull him off coaching the game this weekend. But you don't want the press conference. You don't want nonstop talk on during the entire game about his malfeasances or alleged malfeasances. So I don't think he's going to coach again this season. I am not sure if he's going to coach again at Arizona. But Dave Bliss, who was did the worst thing ever at Baylor,
Bingo.
A little bit more than a decade ago, he became a coach again. Like not a high major coach, but he became a coach again. I would feel almost certain that a coach of Sean Miller's stature will have a second act. Again, not sure if that second act is going to be at Arizona, but I'll bet you any money it's going to be at a high major school and that he will succeed. Because to me, that was a guy who was on the track to a Hall of Fame career. And I would also say this, one more addition to this, our views on amateurism are evolving, have been evolving for years. And I think something that 10 years ago might have been a for sure career ender might not be such a career ender right now.
You're absolutely right. And that's why I was shocked.
Of course I am.
That's why I was shocked to hear Jay Billis say that, because Billis is normally always a voice of reason. Dave Bliss painted a guy that got shot dead within his program as a drug dealer just to cover up his own violations, and he ended up coaching again. I mean, it's likely that Sean Miller not only coaches soon, as you said, could be a high major again, but also it might be by the end of this investigation, everybody in America goes, yeah, Sean Miller was only one of 70 coaches doing this, so we can't not hire him because that's 70 coaches we wouldn't be able to hire.
Oh, it's totally true. Like Jay Billis has like a 99.9% hit rate. Like I tweeted over the weekend, can we please make Jay Billis like the commissioner of college basketball, if not the next president of the NCAA? But yeah, man, I mean, look, second acts, we love second acts. We love redemption stories. I'm not sure if this even ultimately is going to need a redemption story in the end.
But this might not even be a rogue act. I mean, Louisville, Rick Pitino, and now Sean Miller in Arizona could be two guys that lose their jobs. We haven't even gotten into the meat of this case yet in testimony. I mean, couldn't this just be 2 of 50 coaches that end up getting implicated?
Yeah, 2 of 50, and yet, let's remember how many layers there is to all this, and how many different cases there are here. These will all be handled on an individual basis. What Rick Pitino did or is alleged to have done, paying Brian Bowen $100,000 to come to Louisville, that is on top of the other things that Rick Pitino did. And if you ask me, if there wasn't that prostitution scandal, he would still be the head coach at University of Louisville. It's just all these things added up on top of each other. All these players whose names came out over the past few days as related to this FBI investigation, like there's the stuff that seems like your old school definition of cheating. The bag man maybe perhaps allegedly gives DeAndre Ayton $100,000 and he goes to Arizona. That's what we think of as cheating in college sports. A guy whose mother has lunch with an agent and the agent may or may not have paid for that lunch. Are you kidding me? Are we going to lump that in the same category? I feel bad for some of these players whose names came out because, one, we don't know if it's true because these are all based on expense reports of a guy who seems to be a liar. And two, I don't think we can equate these things. Is there really anyone in America who doesn't think that someone like Miles Bridges should be cavorting with agents? I think he'd be an idiot not to.
Reid Forgrave joins us here on the show, CBSSports.com, college basketball writer. Do you fall in the camp that the FBI should have better things to investigate?
Oh, boy, yes. I mean, obviously, right? But at the same time, the NCAA can't investigate this the way that we want it to investigate it. The best thing that could happen out of this FBI investigation isn't to re-entrench amateurism in American sports, to be like, we need to be clean and players must not get paid. There's some purity to college athletics. Like, come on, that ship sailed decades ago. This is there are billions of dollars that are changing hands in college sports these days. The fact that the elite amateur athletes in these big revenue sports, there are two of them, it is men's basketball and football, the fact that they don't get a bigger cut of the pie is, to me, a travesty. It's socialism. It's not the American way. And the best thing that could happen out of this investigation is for a complete rethinking of this amateurism system. To me, we've seen the perfect model, and it's right before our eyes, and it's worked really well over the past couple of weeks, and that's the Olympic model. These are still supposedly amateur athletes, but they can get endorsements. They can make millions of dollars off their amateur athletic career. Why? What would it change things if DeAndre Ayton were to get a $100,000 sponsorship from a local car dealership in Tucson, or a $2 million Nike contract for his 1 year in college? How would that change things? To me, I guess the guy who's the 12th man on the bench is going to be maybe a little bit jealous of DeAndre Ayton, but whatever. Like, you're going to be an accountant someday and make good money, and you got your college scholarship. DeAndre Ayton is going to be an NBA player in a few months.
That's exactly right. And when it comes to kind of tying this into the one and done, some would say, well, if we didn't have one and done and force these kids to go to college, they could begin earning immediately right out of high school, go to the NBA, and then there doesn't have to be under the table payments for these kids. Do you buy that argument that this would somehow clean up the sport if we didn't have the one and done?
I don't think it would be, I don't think it would be like the one and done is guys can go straight from high school tomorrow and it's clean immediately. No, like, there's still going to be a guy who's the best player in his class, who's the best freshman going to college, and that guy's still going to have some sort of market value, whether it's a true above the board market value or whether it's the current black market value. But look, the one and done argument is a fascinating argument, and to me, it's just a very simple question of fairness. Like, this ultimately comes down to fairness. Are we going to force grown men, like we refer to them as kids, but just about everyone in college basketball, there might be the occasional Sviatoslav Mikhailiuk who comes in at age 17, but almost all these guys are 18. They're of legal, not drinking age, but legal voting age. They are grown men, even though they are young men who make dumb mistakes, as we see time and time again in college basketball. But they should be able to make their own decisions. And frankly, and this is to tie it back to this FBI investigation, they should be able to have good counsel, not under-the-table counsel, in making those decisions. The fact that a guy who enters college basketball in June, right, graduates from high school, enters college basketball in June, and he knows there's almost a 100% guarantee that this elite five-star recruit is going to be a millionaire 12 months from today. Why should he not be able to have professional representation? Like it happens with every other entertainer, a 14-year-old singer who hits it big on YouTube. You don't think that person goes and gets an agent the next day? They don't have someone who's saying, oh, you can't do that because you're 14. So to me, it's all a simple question of fairness. I don't know if people going straight out of high school is going to be best overall for those high school students, but I think it's their choice and their parents' choice to make.
Reid Forgrave, CBS Sports college basketball insider. Do you think that this will end up hovering like a mushroom cloud over the entire NCAA tournament, and that there's going to be a little bit of evidence here, a little testimony there, some report here that just kind of keeps popping up throughout the month of March?
I mean, it sure seems like it. Like, I don't think it's any surprise that all these leaks started happening a couple weeks before the tournament, after the Super Bowl, not during the season. Like, we had all this broke back in September when this investigation was announced publicly, and we really haven't heard all that much since then. And then all of a sudden, it's been a fire hose the past few days. So I think that is intentional. I think that is what grabs the biggest headlines or what makes the biggest splash. I think this will hover over every single press conference. Every time Miles Bridges does an interview, people are going to ask him about this. Every time DeAndre Ayton, if he plays again, if he plays during the NCAA tournament, which I still think is going to be up in the air. Every time he has a camera in front of his face, he's going to be asked about it. I feel bad. I know people will rip on me for this because rules are rules, right? But I feel bad for the players in this situation because these are 18-year-old, 19-year-old young men who are brought into this established system where they're told this is what happens here. And for them to have to face the cameras, I do feel, yes, if they broke the rules, I suppose they should be punished for breaking the rules, but it feels a whole lot different when you have a teenager breaking these rules than when you have a coach who's been established in the system for decades.
Well, and to your point, let's say DeAndre Ayton got a $100,000 offer from Arizona, but got $75,000 offer from another school, and a $65,000 offer from a different school, and a $50,000 offer from a different school. If he doesn't take the highest bid, he's stupid, and it's not like you would pay $100,000 to get DeAndre Ayton if there weren't other bids out there. You would pay $5 or $10. So that much money means there has to be other bids out there for these guys, doesn't it?
By the way, if he got $100,000 to go to Arizona, Arizona got a hell of a deal. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, think about this. Like, think of how much. I know everyone will say it's the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. Whatever. You need to field a good team. If Sean Miller doesn't have five-star recruits out there, if he's tossing out a bunch of scrubs and people would say, oh, it's all about the front of the jersey. Yeah, it's going to be about the front of the jersey until they win 11 games and Sean Miller is fired and the next coach will be able to get these five stars. So, of course, there is a market for these guys. Of course, there's more than just one bidder. Again, to me, it seems like a very obvious solution, the Olympic solution, and it seems like a very obvious moral question that we are a capitalistic society. You can tell me, you know what, most of these players are going to get a 4-year college scholarship, and I would die for a 4-year college scholarship. They get to get their education. They're not going to play in the pros. They're getting a deal here. They're getting way above their market value. 100%. I agree, man. If you're the 8th person on the bench who's never going to see a minute of NBA play, much less like European play, you are getting a deal. But what about the guys who are worth so much more than that and who are essentially forced? I know people would argue with force, but you're essentially forced to play in this amateur system. Yeah, you can go over to China or Italy or Australia or play in the D League, but come on, the way the system is set up, the best way to make the NBA and make your success in the NBA is to go to college. It strikes me ultimately when we really step back from this at 10,000 feet and get our emotions of what we have attached to the sanctity of college sports and the beauty of it. And believe me, I buy in on the beauty of it. I enjoy college sports more than pro sports because there is something that's a little bit more real about it. But when we step back from this and just look at it, it strikes me as very obvious that there's some injustice going on here with the most elite players in college basketball and frankly all college sports.
Reid Forgrave. Read him at cbssports.com. All over the college hoops and this bonanza of news that we're getting. Also, he's going to be part of the CBS Sports HQ, a brand new 24/7 direct-to-consumer streaming network, which is going to be awesome for sports news. So this is the perfect time of year to get involved in that as well. Look for all of that on cbssports.com properties, CBS Sports HQ. Follow Reid on Twitter at Reid Forgrave. Reid, next time we talk to you, maybe we'll do some basketball, actual X's and O's.
Yeah, I thought we were just talking about games. How do you roll me into this? Come on, man.
How about when the Selection Sunday rolls around, or maybe even before then, we'll talk about the tournament field.
Perfect.
All right, bud. Great. Thanks so much, man. Reid Forgrave joining us this morning on the DA Show.